that's perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so it is about to live stream. And we are set.
All right. Yay. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be a part of everything today. So I am going to be taking you guys through how to cope with financial anxiety as a small business owner, and just a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. Is what, and actually, let me just pause myself. I'm going to close the chat. I will open it back up later, but it's just hard for me to see everything. So go ahead and put your questions in the chat. And then what I'll do is I'll try and get through like a third of the slides, check the chat, a third of the slides, check the chat, etc. So what I'm going to be taking you guys through is just in general, what is anxiety, and then what financial anxiety is, and how to cope with financial anxiety, regardless of what the economy is looking like. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a social worker and therapist by training. In my fun time, I enjoy personal finances. I'm one of those weird people who likes it. I'm the first financial therapist in Michigan, so I'm out here in the Midwest. I am an author. My book was just published on February 18th, and I'm also a speaker. And financial therapy is a relatively new thing. It's been around for exactly 10 years. The Financial Therapy Association just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. And what I have learned, since I've only been certified since May of 2018, so less than 2 years, is that there is such a hunger in the world for this type of work. And I'm sharing with you guys a handful of the places that I've been able to be featured, because so many people are hungry for things that are unique, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on. But when I first started out on this journey, my therapist friends were like, oh, that's cool, but like, who's gonna come? And my financial planner friends were like, oh, that's cool, but like, who's gonna come? And now I get to not brag. No, I will brag. I get to say, look, this was a need. I could tell it was a need when I was in the room with my clients and they were telling me, I'm stressed out about money. I felt like as a therapist, I needed to be able to address it in a holistic way. So the way that I do that is I merge my two favorite things, which are mental health and money. So I help people understand the psychological and the emotional side of things. And I also help people with the nuts and bolts of money. I kind of live in both of those worlds in the work that I do. And this is me just sharing with you that whatever work that you do, if people are like, I'm not sure, or is that a good idea? You know, in your gut and in your heart, if what you want to do and what you want to bring into the world and serve the world with is right. And you will be able to find your people to get your message across, get your services or your goods into the hands of people who need it. In my practice, I mostly work with couples, just by way of how things shook out. When I first hung up my financial therapy shingle, I said, I'll see whoever comes in. And really quickly, individuals were pouring in, but a lot of them were married or partnered. And I found really quickly that I needed to see both people in order to do good work. And I made the rule that I would only see, if you were in a relationship, I would only see you if you came in as a duo or as a unit. And I made that rule about 9 months to a year ago. It's hard to keep everything straight. And on April 1st, I was actually going to be taking a step back from the therapy world and start stepping into the coaching world. I think I saw a psychologist on here, but I'm not sure. But the reason for that is that I wanted to be able to do a few things. One, I wanted to be able to practice across state lines, which with my licensure, I'm not able to do. And two, I didn't want to deal with the fallout of practicing across state lines in a way that wasn't going to be appropriate. So coaching gives me so much more flexibility to do it. So I'm not diagnosing, I'm not treating anybody. I'm really doing the guiding part. And I'm moving into an online group-based, cohort-based model, which is also, it's pretty typical in online coaches, but for my friends who are therapists, it's like mind blowing. They don't have masterminds and kumare circles the way that folks in the online space do. So it's pretty new. I am 4 of 6 months into my beta group, and it is going beautifully because people want to talk about money, and they want to talk about it in a place that feels safe and feels secure, and that they won't be shamed for talking about it. So that is a little bit about both my business and my world. And I hope that helps you understand where I'm coming from as we shift into the meat of things. Oh, shoot, I lost my little chat box. I was just going to check it. Someone can type something in sometimes and it'll pop back up the chat. There we go. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Lourdes. Okay, I was just checking to see if there were anything popping up there. Beautiful. All right, so let's first talk about what anxiety in general is, and then we'll shift into what financial anxiety is. So anxiety is normal. It is a healthy, temporary response to a stressor that shows up physically, emotionally, and behaviorally. So for example, giving this presentation might be a little bit of a stressor for me. So during the presentation, my palms might be sweaty, my chest might be a little bit tight. I might be kind of double checking the thoughts in my head and my behavior. I might be more fidgety than usual, or I might freeze up. And I'm making these things up because I'm actually pretty comfortable with all of y'all, and I'm a hand talker anyway. But that's healthy anxiety. It's a healthy response to a stressor like that. Unhealthy anxiety would be after this presentation, when I hop off of Zoom and when I go downstairs to prep for dinner, because I'm a few hours ahead of you guys. If that anxiety doesn't come down, if my palms don't stop sweating, if my throat doesn't become loosened up, if my thoughts don't quiet down, then we run into a problem. So the reason I say this is to say that so many times people make it seem like anxiety is a bad thing, but anxiety in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's a constant or chronic type of anxiety that is a worry, but it's a healthy response to a stressor. And it comes in the way that we think, it comes in the way that we feel physically and emotionally, and it also shows up in the way that we behave. So when it comes to financial anxiety, you can probably all envision what this might be. So any type of money-related anxiety can contribute to making poor financial choices. More than half of Americans, no surprise, say money is a source of anxiety. I imagine if we polled Americans today, this number would be much, much higher. And financial anxiety, if it isn't worked on, if it isn't dialed down to a manageable level, means that you can sometimes react and be a little bit too alarmist instead of being proactive. So you might make a big move. So this week, I shared this yesterday on a YouTube Live, actually. I'm in an investing group on Facebook, and somebody posted on like Tuesday that they'd sold all of their stocks because they were so scared about the market going down. And that type of financial anxiety, or that kind of shows you how financial anxiety can manifest. They saw the stocks tanking, so they started to think, oh my gosh, I'm losing money. They started to feel scared and anxious, as they mentioned in their post, and the behavior was super reactive. They sold all of their stocks, which for those of you, I'm sure you know, it's probably not super wise to sell all of your stocks right now. You only lose money in the stock market if you take it out right now. So this person had really acted out of financial anxiety. So for me, I'm a person who typically likes to look at my investments. I actually don't look at them that often, but maybe twice a month, once a month. And right now I am not looking at them at all because I know that it would kind of pique some of my financial anxiety. I want to pause here for a second, because as small business owners, we can all experience financial anxiety in different ways. So how many of you, you can just type a 1 in the chat if you're service-based, and type a 2 in the chat if you are product-based, just so I can kind of get a sense of who here is service-based or product-based. So just a 1. Okay, so service, 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 service. Okay, wow. Okay, so this is not scientific, but it looks like 80 to 90% of you guys are service-based, and then there's a couple of people who are product-based. I'm sure you can all resonate with this regardless, but I'll share my experience of raising my rates. A few years ago, when I got my financial therapy certificate, it was time for me to raise my rates because I now had this additional skill set that was rare. I can't remember if I mentioned this, but there's only 50 of us in the United States. So I went ahead to raise my rates. And even though I study this, even though I practice this, I was wrestling with, can I raise my rates? What are my clients going to say? Am I going to lose my clients? I went back and forth. I thought about raising them $2 here and then another $2 in 3 months. Like, I spent so much time in my head spinning about raising my rates. And finally, I talked myself through everything, made the decision to raise my rates 25%, and told my clients, and nobody batted an eye. And not only did nobody bat an eye, but one of my clients said to me, Lindsay, you should have done that a long time ago. So the reason I share that example is that we all experience financial anxiety. And had I listened when I was in that anxious space, I would have made my life so much more miserable by raising my rates by $2 at a time every 3 months. Like, I can't, you guys all know how it is when you have to raise your rates, you have to go in on the back end of things and change things. So to try and make it easier on my clients, I was going to make it so much more work for myself. So I'm really thankful that even though I experienced financial anxiety, when I went ahead to make that move, I made it from a place of being calm, being really centered, and being really intentional about it. And then thankfully, I got a lot of positive reinforcement. I didn't get blowback. I didn't lose any clients. I didn't have anybody say anything negative to me. And in fact, the best positive reinforcement I got was when a client said to me, you should have done that a long time ago. So I'm sure all of you can relate to that pricing anxiety that we experience, but I wanted to share that for a little bit of context. And then this also just helps me to get a sense of who's on today. So the different ways that we can cope with financial anxiety that I'm going to go over is to practice distraction and not avoidance, to get the facts of what your numbers are, and then really check in with where your business is right now in regards to what's going on in our world. Is it business as usual? Were you 100% online anyway? Or is it completely impacted and you're putting on the brakes and pivoting hard? And we'll get into all of this. Any questions before I move on to coping skills? Okay. So let's talk about distraction versus avoidance. So when we feel anxiety, because I shared with you, it's the way we think, it's the way we feel, it's the way we behave. Distraction is a really healthy, time-limited way to take a break from a stressor. So on the interwebs, everyone calls this self-care right now, which I'm like, great, give it a rebrand. As long as you're doing it, I don't care. But what this is taking a pause to do something that's good for you, to give your brain a break, to give your emotions a break, and to give your body a break from the stressors that are coming at it. Avoidance, on the other hand, is unhealthy because while it might start out as a distraction, it often doesn't end up being productive, because what happens is they are avoiding the stressor so much that they're never engaging with it. So let me see if I can rephrase that. So if I am really anxious about my business and I'm stressing out about things, and I know that I'm going to make an unwise choice about my business finances, I'm going to go distract myself. So I might, for me, sit down and watch an episode of Shaws of Sunset on Bravo, right? That would be a healthy distraction. Avoidance would be when not only do I watch the entire latest series of Shaws of Sunset, but then I spend the next 2 days getting caught up on all the Housewife franchises, and I'm not thinking about my business decisions any longer. So distraction is short term. It gives your physiological system a break. It gives your brain and body emotions a break. And avoidance is where you're kind of having your head in the sand. Does that differentiation make sense? And you can just type like yes in the chat if that makes sense. Okay, perfect. Yes, yes, for sure. Good. Okay. I'm actually going to pause here for a second. Yeah, love my Bravo shows. I know I'm consuming so much more Bravo with the situation that we are in. I would love to hear from any of you if you want to unmute yourselves, if you want to share an experience of avoidance versus distraction, of how you're using healthy distraction when you have financial anxiety, and when you might be tipping into avoidance, or if you have questions about how to differentiate between the two. If anybody wants to chime in, that would be great. Okay. And you can always unmute yourself if you think of something. Wow. Clearly, I did this really quickly. This is also an example of how putting something together and getting it out there as a business owner is better than doing it perfectly and being late. So I have a typo. That's the first thing I saw when I got to this slide. And my brain just went, oh shit, I have a typo here. My brain went like straight to negative. Oh my gosh, they're going to think I don't know what I'm talking about. I can't believe I put a typo in there. What was I thinking? Anna Marie's going to be so embarrassed that she invited me on. And then because I practiced a lot of reframing my anxious thoughts, I can go, they don't care. They're human. Everybody is inside doing a million Zoom calls and having like weird neck pain all of a sudden show up. Everybody understands that we have distractions of children and neighbors and dogs, and we're trying to do school and work and everything else online, and that things are just going by a little bit quicker. So here's a real life example of how you can kind of just work on changing those anxious thoughts in the moment. So how much money do you need to survive? What I want for you to think about as a small business owner is, what is the minimum viable number you need to survive? So in small businesses and for solopreneurs, it's more about your personal finances. Whereas with businesses that are a little bit bigger, you're looking at your like business revenue. So let me see if I can break that down. So for me, I need to make sure that because I am a solopreneur, I only have to worry about myself, that the money that I bring in is able to cover, mortgage, groceries, car payment, etc. And I need to be able to make sure that it can cover things like high-speed internet, because I do things mostly remote. I need to make sure that I can pay for the software services that I have available. So what is the minimum viable number you need to survive? And this is really important to be thinking about in times of economic uncertainty, because I think for a lot of us, we're like, oh my gosh, if I don't sell one more project, I'm going to be like out on the streets. And oftentimes the number to get through, the number to just survive, is much lower than the number we're actually living off of. So right now, you may be doing things a lot less than you used to do. So thinking about, what are some things that I can eliminate from my spending that aren't going to harm me? And I want to be really careful as I explain this, because we are all small business owners. We do rely on other people spending and exchanging their money with us for us to make a living. So thinking about, what do I need to survive for both my food and shelter, but also for my physical and mental health. right? So for me, I just restarted a streaming service a couple of days ago to do some streaming exercises because I was starting to get like, I just needed to move my body in a more mindful way. And I needed somebody else to tell me what to do. And I don't know about you guys, but when I go on YouTube to do internet workouts, I end up spending a half hour trying to find the right video, and then I don't end up working out. So, long story short, that's all to say that thinking about what you need to be spending money on right now to survive, and survival also includes your mental health and your physical health. So thinking about how much does it cost each month for you to pay your rent or mortgage? How much does it cost each month for you to feed yourself? How much does it cost each month for you to be able to purchase things from the pharmacy, like medicine and vitamins that you might need? So thinking about the basics that you need, and then from there, seeing how can I make that much money each month so that at least I am surviving when things feel uncertain. And this is crucial because with financial anxiety, just like with traditional anxiety, one of the things that peaks our anxiety or spikes our anxiety is not knowing what's happening, not knowing what's coming. So when we feel out of control, we tend to feel more anxious. So once we can understand our actual monthly numbers, it helps to bring power back to you so that you can start to feel that sense of control over what is going on. So really making sure that you have that number available, and then looking at your business and going, how can I make my ends meet? If it costs me $4,000 a month to live, how can I make sure that I am selling $4,000 a month worth of goods and services? Now, this is not about profitability. Profit First, for those of you guys who are familiar, they really teach doubling that. To have a successful, not successful, a sustainable business model. So they would argue to bring in 2x that, so bringing in $8,000 per month. And that's not even including taxes, which is like getting way out in the weeds, but just thinking about finding your numbers and how can you dig into the things that you have available to you so that you can survive. Take a breath. So I would love to hear from people in the chat about how the situation that we are in has impacted your business. So if you can give me a scale of like 1 to 5, 1 is my business is totally impacted, it's bad, and 5 is a business as usual, that would help me to understand who is here in the room. So 1 is I'm totally impacted, 5 is business as usual. Okay. So we kind of have a range right now. So Jessica is saying a 3, so she's kind of right there in the middle. Leah, let's see, 1 to 5, Leah. I might have said 10 by accident. So 1 is not good, 5 is good. So 1 is things are totally up in the air, and 5 is business as usual. So Elisa, business as usual. Christy, right in the middle. Augie, Jana, Anita. Okay, Anita's a 4. Maria, 5. I'm just starting. Okay. Oh, interesting. Maria, can you, if you're comfortable unmuting yourself, can you say how business as usual is going for you if you're just starting out?
Hi.
Hey there.
So, yeah, because since I'm just starting, I haven't really made like I haven't really gathered enough items to sell yet.
Okay.
So I haven't really on the market yet. So, but my only problem is like funding, like how
Okay.
to start up my business, like capitals and stuff.
Okay. And what is your business? What are you selling?
I sell like a sustainable apparel and items like
Okay.
made from recycled textiles and plastics.
Oh my gosh, amazing. And who is your target market?
I want to start here locally in Canada first.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then hopefully worldwide.
Look at you. Yes. So are you targeting women, kids, men, older, younger folks? Tell me a little bit about who is buying your sustainable apparel.
Um, like men or women or gender neutral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. So the reason I ask is that it's really interesting to say, oh, business as usual when you're starting out new, but I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. So for my folks who are in that earlier phase of their business, to use the reframe that was just offered to us from Maria about business as usual. So getting started, gathering up products and to be able to sell is going to be huge. Okay. Thanks, Maria. I appreciate you popping in on there.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've got a lot, at least 2 or 3 people who are doing wedding industry stuff. Yeah, so bookings for sure are impacted, canceled, postponed. Yeah, nobody can go out. Yeah, so it's a little bit tricky. Can either of you guys, either Lourdes or who else said weddings are impacted? Would one of you guys with the wedding impacted share with me how you're coping?
Um, well, for me right now, because I'm transitioning to like just using locally grown
And can you
flowers. So,
just state your name? Sorry.
sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, there is a July wedding. So I'm trying to focus more on brides who are wanting like locally sourced flowers. So I'm not like, so my the brides that I'm reaching out to is not massive already, because I'm transitioning to just sustainable flowers, and there are some brides that want that. So the July wedding, we're supposed to meet on Monday, so that is, I don't know if we're still yeah, so I don't know if they are pushing through with their wedding or not. And then the August one, which is kind of like my ideal or like dream bride, because she doesn't care about the color. She just like want locally grown flowers, and it will be like the whole wedding. But now I don't even know. Yeah, they might postpone again. So now my market will be, I'll be focusing on the on farmers market. You know.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so your stuff is kind of on hold, but it sounds like it will get picked back up. How are you surviving in the meantime until July?
Exactly. It doesn't. It's just in a matter of like how long is this isolation is going to be, and then
Mhm,
and so
mhm.
hopefully, yeah, by summer it will pick up, and there's yeah. So just right now, I don't know, because there's no meetings. People are like not reaching out, and just giving people space as well, and then maybe wait a week or two, and then okay, let's reconnect, sort of thing.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
So,
oh,
sorry, go ahead.
okay. Sorry. So my name is Laika, and I
I
do
like that.
wedding. Hi. I do wedding photography, and right now my weddings for March and April, and the May and June ones are still like up in the air. A lot of brides are panicking because they don't know when the whole COVID-19 is gonna just die out.
Mhm.
Um, so right now, I just spoke with Alyssa about this, and I told her like I'm kind of in the panic mode right now because I don't know, like people don't want to go out. So
Mhm.
I do family photography as well, but I was telling her I feel like I don't know if it's like a bad time to ask people to book their holiday sessions at this point in time, and so that I could get their deposits and get by, and then give them something special for when the holidays kick in and when we do their sessions.
Yes, yes. Okay. So, what I would love to share with both you, Leica, and Lourdes is getting creative, like what can you do to pivot? What do you have or know that other people need? And I already heard you guys kind of eliciting some of that stuff. So Lourdes, when you were talking, you're really eliciting this need of community and sustainability by having flowers that are local and regional and of the season. And then Leica, when you were talking about wanting to do something else, but also creating keepsakes, and tapping into kind of memories and nostalgia for your clients. So one thing that I want to say to everybody here is that right now is not the time to just wait and see, because that is going to mean that you are behind the eight ball when everything calms down. So now is not the time to go, okay, I'll just wait until July and then I'll decide what I'm going to offer. Start thinking about what you're going to be able to offer now, because what's going to create more financial anxiety is having no money come in, right? We all know that feeling when things aren't selling or when our services aren't going and being picked up the way that we want them to be. So I really want to encourage you that now is the time to say, hey, I have something to offer and I can offer it to you now. And so it might not be delivered in the exact same way. So like, I loved what you said about saying, I'll get a deposit now for later, and thinking about what can you do now that might be creative as a way to use your services to deliver something now. So going back to the last presentation, right? Like, what is your deliverability like in the meantime? So you can say, hey, my package is when November, December comes out, we'll get you some pictures. And if I'm stuck at home with my family or my kids or my new partner, like what can you do right now? And this is a question for everybody, but Leica, since you were popped on here, either Leica or Lourdes, if you can think about how would you answer that question? What's something you can deliver now in the meantime, where while we all are in this weird space?
Um,
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I was mentioning earlier. So on Mailchimp, I have a campaign already, like for tulip subscription.
Mm-hmm.
Because my plan is like to offer it like even before it is ready for harvest, which for me will be like mid-May up to like the first weekend of June, based on history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just got busy with like putting together my content for the workshop today, but then after that, yeah, I'm gonna reach out a target, because there were a few people who messaged me directly on Instagram, like sign me up for that. I would want your tulips and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. That, yeah, like just after this weekend, after today, Monday, that will be my focus. Putting all this campaigns or like together, and then so that I can have it ready, available for people. Yeah, like if they want to buy now in
Mm-hmm.
anticipation for May or June subscriptions. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So starting to generate some income now.
Yeah.
What about deliverability of things you can offer before May or June? I know it's a little tricky to think,
Yeah.
but like, could you even send them a card like with a print of the tulips from last year or
That's
something
right.
like that? Just thinking
Yeah.
about like what's something. So I joined I can't remember. I joined so many freaking memberships. So everyone wins. Whoever has a membership, I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah,
But one of
yeah.
them sent me this, like, we didn't start for 3 months, right? I joined early. And when I joined, like within probably 7 days, 10 days, I got this adorable little box full of like affirmation cards and some lotion and like a little journal, right? So thinking about little things like that you can deliver now that helps your customer and your consumer to say, oh my gosh, if this is how they treat me now, imagine how she's going to treat me when my tulips start arriving every month.
Oh, that's a good idea, because I've never thought about that actually. But yeah, there were a lot of like great photos that I was able to
Yes.
take like last year, and I think, yeah, I mean, we can't do like in person like meetups, right? I think yeah, sending them a photos will be great. And also, you know what, the other thing is, there is potential to generate money before the actual blooms for seedlings, because
Yes.
yeah, so I'm right now, like I'm sowing. Usually I have a plan on just how much I will sow, because time, no, a space limitation, but I'm doing this like mini blocks instead
Yeah.
of like using plug tray. And so actually like one shelf here, I can have like 365 times four, like that many seedlings. And if they germinate, that is like what, 4,000 seedlings. And that's the other thing I was just telling on the a chat as well, and in reply to Anna Marie,
Mhm.
that there are a lot of ideas just like from 3 hours of like sitting here,
Yeah, I'm
and just
sure.
going to jump on that opportunity, but also like word it in a way that it's not very tacky, like, but then just like a lot of like sense of hope. um
Yes.
yeah, so
Yes.
this is
Okay.
great. I can't believe like you guys put together a great workshop, like very helpful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Anna Marie does a good job of rallying the
Right.
troops.
No, but the speakers, the lineup of speakers are like
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. So I wanted, you touched on something, Lourdes, that is
Mhm.
so important, which is, what do people want? People will
Yeah.
pay for getting their time back. They'll pay to have their money come back to them, right? They'll pay for their health and their mental health, and they'll pay for love and relationships. So I don't know where you are. I'm imagining a lot of you folks are in California where there's a ton of shelter in place going on, but I can imagine wanting some love in the form of like a beautiful floral delivery, every once a month. I can imagine wanting a sense of normalcy. I can imagine that once I see that tulip, if it is a seedling, being like, oh my gosh, life still happens, right?
Yeah.
You can really tap onto things. And I really have had to work hard on my own money story and my own money work, about saying that sales is not about being gross or sleazy or unhelpful. For me, if I'm going to purchase something and I have a helpful salesperson, it's a game changer. It's a
Yeah.
total game changer. So thinking about what you can offer to them
Yeah.
that feels in alignment with you and really speaks to your customer is hugely important.
Yeah, and so just quickly, so I am in the center of Canada. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's spring now, but we still have like so much snow on the ground. So I still have like 2 months at least. Like yeah, so there is that time, like I feel like, yeah, I still have time right now and cultivate those relationships
Mm-hmm.
with my subscribers now, and potentially people who sign up for the tulips who are not expecting it until May, to actually connect with them already
Yeah.
between now until they get their fresh blooms.
Yes, and you know what? I don't know about you guys. I'm thankful that every business in the world is telling me about their response to COVID. But for me, the emails that I'm actually reading right now are not the ones that have that in the subject line, because it's like triggering to me, right? So I don't know if you guys know Anna Salumbides, but she did a blog post about toxic collective energy and using that word and how it's starting to like trigger our fight, flight, freeze. And that really resonated with me. So I think to have something in your inbox about like
Yeah.
getting fresh flowers would be like, yes, please.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you. That's really helpful. And yeah, I was just like talking to like a floral designer, and she just reposted something on Instagram, how like a call for like flower growers, that because used to be a flower buyer too, so actually a purchaser, and I can imagine the
Mm-hmm.
disruption in supply chain. The flowers
Mm-hmm.
are coming from South America, stopping in Florida, and then yeah, and then by semi truck coming to Canada. So there's a lot of disruption in supply chain.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So just thinking through things that you've done in the past and how can you use them now. Mhm. Like I had an idea that just popped into my head that you might have already thought of. Um, but thinking about like as these weddings are getting postponed, doing a photo shoot at the couple's home, but like where you stay 6 feet away. Like I imagine it's probably pretty easy to stay 6 feet away from your clients, but to do it in their backyard or to do it in their neighborhood or something like that, just to document kind of the moment in their lives and kind of the bittersweetness of what their wedding day might have been. I'm sure you can phrase that in a way that is more articulate than what's coming to mind right now. But I know for me, it would have been really helpful to have some sort of little token of that day. And maybe your clients are like, no, I don't want any memory of it. But I think that that could also be a potential option. So thinking about how you can help people with these things right now.
Okay. Yeah. But I was thinking about what you were asking for earlier, like what to deliver them now in this moment. I'm like, I drew a blank about like, because my deliverables are photos.
Yeah.
So would it be a service or like a final output?
So I think that depends, right? I think depending on where are you located right now?
California, SoCal.
Okay. So are you on a shelter in place?
So right now we can't go out. Like they said not to go out. So
okay. Right. And there are, and I'm not trying to tell anybody to not obey the rules. That's not what I'm saying. But there are loopholes for things that are essential. And one of those things is like food delivery. So could you package like a date night photo shoot for your clients, bring them a pizza and a beer and do something like that?
Yes. Sorry, I just got excited when you said that. And
yeah,
I like
please. I'm glad. Then you're following the rules. You can stay away from them. Like, again, you don't need to like go into their home. But you can do like something along those lines. And I think people are so like, I love my husband, but he's downstairs. And I'm like, I want to see somebody else's face. You know what I mean? So just to like have a little bit of human interaction right now might be really helpful. And then you're not breaking the rules.
Yes. Sorry, I got excited. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll also say, right, so we all know, so I'm a therapist, right? So that when I'm in the room with clients, like, oh my gosh, you're so smart. And I'm like, thanks. But really it's just because I'm not in your head, right? So I have an outsider's perspective. So some of the things that I say are not going to land at all for you and some things will, but just also keep that in mind. If you're getting stuck in your own head, that's why groups like this are so helpful, right? Just to kind of workshop and say, here's what I'm thinking. And someone can go, okay, that sounds like 70% good, but do X, Y, and Z, or have you thought about this? So just being open to pivot is really helpful. Does anyone else want to do a quick little thing like I've done with Lourdes and Leica about, some of their stressors, their financial anxiety, especially if your services are really impacted, or if you're on the other side and your services aren't impacted and you're feeling like guilty that you haven't had your services impacted? I'd love to chat it on. That's not a thing.
Hi, I'm Jenna.
Jenna.
I'm a freelance editor for students in grad school.
Okay, so where would you rank yourself on that 1 to 5? 1 is super impacted and 5 is not.
I felt like I was a 1 because the students that I work with, I don't want to take up their money while they're in a very unsure position.
Okay, when you say students, which students?
The grad students that I work with, like a lot of them, their part-time jobs have, cut them off because they're not on campus anymore, or, they work in the service industry as well, and they're not essential for now. So I'm pretty worried about my next source of income.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your work. When you say you're doing editing, tell me a little bit about what that means.
So I help them in their process when it comes to tying ideas together. So they do all the research and they put everything in a rough draft for me to go over as a third person party that's not necessarily like in their school system, their education system. So that way they don't have to worry about me. Like, I guess, I think I give them more of a perspective that helps them be more accessible to those who aren't in academia. Yeah, so I give them that sort of context and input when it comes to editing whatever essays or articles that they have.
So when you say essays or articles, are they internal, like they're staying within the world of academia, or are you saying external, like they're pitching them to news sources or to blogs and such?
I say internal, but they would like to publish it for themselves to be able to give to others or make it accessible for people outside of academia.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I would love, Jenna, for you to answer the question, what do you have that could help people with their time, money, love, relationships, or health and mental health? What do you have in this business, or what skills do you use that could help people with that?
That's a good question. I think I'm really great at conceptualizing abstract thoughts and ideas.
Okay.
So that's why I went into this kind of editing versus like technical editing, which is just grammar and syntax and all that.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
And how does that help people with their time, money, relationships, or health?
I think it helps people with their time. So that way they're not talking around a subject and talking through it instead. Like I really liked the idea of utilizing a mail list and maybe putting out resources for them during this time of uncertainty, and maybe having it be like at a lower cost or donation based or something like that. So at least there's something coming in and they also feel like there's a service.
Okay. So here's my thing about offering free or reduced services. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. I just think you have to be really cognizant of it, because you said something interesting earlier. You said, I don't want to take their money.
Yeah.
Are you actually taking their money? No, you're exchanging. No, you're not. You're not like, excuse me, I need your lunch money. I'm stealing this from you. No, this is an exchange. You are giving them something valuable that is really hard for a lot of people to write things in a concise way, in a way that most people can understand. That is really hard to do. So for you to be able to come in there and offer that is huge. Yes, grad students in particular may be a tricky market, but where can your editorial skills really shine right now? Hello, the entire world has started to move online. Who are people that might have been talkers or might have been better at in-person stuff that now need their help distilling their thoughts into concrete, easy to digest words?
Ooh. Okay, so like even pivoting my audience, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't seem to pinpoint specifically.
Okay. So I'm gonna call on the circle to type in the chat which audience, which people might be a good place for Jenna to go to use her skill set, right? Who needs help right now with words and with getting things, abstract thoughts figured out? Who might need that right now? And I want to go back to, I didn't really finish my thought on giving away things. I just think you need to be really cognizant of doing it in a way that is not turning you into a volunteer. I come from the world of social work where we are conditioned to believe that money is bad, right? And almost every single one of my grad programs or my classes in grad school, they would say things like, you didn't choose this job because you care about money, or money isn't important to you. So that was another story that had really gotten internalized. But then what tends to happen is social workers are some of the worst people with money. And that's not anecdotal. There's research that therapists and people in the mental health profession have some of the worst money habits. So I really think it's important for us to, yes, offer things to our community. So for you, maybe, Jenna, it might be doing like a group Zoom editing session that is, what you would charge like your hourly rate, but off that way, then the students could hop on for a fifth of the cost or something like that. But I also think you still need to be generating income. If we've seen anything from the situation that we're in, it's that we all need to be exchanging money. Otherwise, everything comes to a halt. So thinking about who else might be able to use that. So you were doing grad students. Who were you working with before grad students?
There were a couple of authors that have come up to me for their manuscripts, but I wasn't necessarily peddling those services, if that makes sense. They knew me from word of mouth. Okay. So that's how I helped with that.
Perfect. But so who has, which maybe budding authors have been sitting around waiting for time to just do their work now and finally have time to do their writing, right? So can you tap in back into those people and tap back into that market and say, hey, you know, with everything that's going on, I'm still serving my grad students, but right now I've got the capacity to take on authors if anybody's looking for an editor for a book or an essay or whatever.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Anyone else have a question or even thoughts for anybody that we've kind of chatted on? I keep saying chatted on. That's not a thing, but I'm going to make it a thing after today. It's the way my brain is like working. Anyone else have questions about how they can, maybe if they've been impacted or haven't been impacted, how their financial anxiety is showing up? Okay, cool. Well, we got done a few minutes early then. Any just general questions for me? This is where you can find me, by the way. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for letting me be here and share my info with you guys on financial anxiety. So I hope you are all feeling a little less anxious. Get your numbers in order. Make sure you're practicing healthy distraction and not avoidance. And then just thinking about what do you have to offer that the world needs and how can you get it out there. Yeah, so thanks guys. I appreciate it.